Welcome back to my channel Filmatory. Today we take a dive into the dark romantic comedy of 2020 titled Looks That Kill. The scene opens in a therapeutic center where Dr. Klingman sits across a kid named Max, whose face has been wrapped up with swathes. Klingman asks Max what the issue is. Max lets him know that individuals in some way or another mysteriously dies when they see his face. He then, at that point, narrates the details about incidents and flashes back to the time of his birth, where a specialist, alongside some other staff who were available at the hour of his delivery, blacked out and died after seeing his face. After this, Max says, his family chooses to move out of the city, having confidence in the proposition. Less individuals, less disasters. Be that way, but nothing could help him. He says to Klingman that he simply needs to be an ordinary kid and live a normal and happy life like other kids. Klingman says that the issue just is in Max's mind and urges him to remove his swathes. Then the scene shifts to waiting area of center outside where Max's guardians, Mr. and Mrs. Richardson, are sitting. A noise startles them and they rush inside to see the Dr. Klingman lying dead on the ground before Max, who is hurriedly wrapping his face back up. Following this event, the police show up and warn Max's guardians that if more individuals die like this, they have no other option but to place Max in jail. The couple guarantee the police that such disasters won't happen again. In the meantime, a block on the ground gets Max's attention, and he keeps that block with him. That evening, Max's colleague Dan joins the family for dinner. Max's family discovers that Dan has joined on a dating site. Max's parents insists Max do likewise so he can get friends of his age. While Dan is alone with Max afterward, Max gives Dan the block and requests that he hit him in the face with it so his issue can end. Dan will not do this and lets him know that because of Valentine's Day, Max has high possibilities scoring a date. After this, Dan gets busy with his phone. In the wake of saying this, Max attempts to grab his attention by slapping his phone and unintentionally winds up tossing it on the ground. As a reaction, Dan hits him right on the face with the block. The following day, Mrs. Richardson takes Max to another specialist. Individuals in the waiting region are gazing at Max due to his wrapped-up face. This infuriates his mom and she tells Max to cover his face with the magazine. Max goes to the magazine rack, but it's empty. A young girl named Alex is seen playing computer games there. Alex gives Max her magazine and to have a concise discussion before Max is called into the specialist. Later at home, Mrs. Richardson makes a call to complain about the malfunctioning heating system of her living room. In any case, when the individual on the opposite end discovers that she is Max's mom, he hangs up. Dan visits Max after this and lets him know he has a date for him. Max appears to be hesitant to go and falls onto the floor in stress. Dan guarantees him that all that will be okay and takes him to an eatery where he acquaints him with a young lady called Erica. It turns out Erica is rebuffed by Max's swathes and has no interest at all in their date. To make an already difficult situation even worse, the bashful Max acts exceptionally abnormal because of the newness of their experience. After a second, a lawbreaker young person called Craig makes a scene on another table and gets up to leave while strolling by Max and Erica's table. He recognizes Erica and sits adjacent to her. He then, at that point, takes a gander at Max and understands he's the person who kills with his looks. This conversation about his face makes Max uncomfortable and he unintentionally spills his beverage. Craig gets in fury and starts cleaning the table with Max's face. The administrator comes and makes the safety officers take Craig out. Max inquires as to whether she'll go out on the town with him later, however she declines and leaves. Disrupted and disheartened by this occasion, Max chooses to end it all. He goes to a high bridge and stands at the edge, keeping himself down by the railing similarly as he's going to jump. Alex, the young lady from the emergency clinic, approaches him out of the blue and asks him what he's doing. Max tells her his intentions and communicates his feelings. Alex offers Max some jelly beans, however when he declines them, she dumps them in a water and comments that he'll at least be jumping in a stream brimming with jelly beans. Max tells her this used to be his fantasy. When the two bantered for some time and Max rules against jumping. From that point, Alex brings Max with her to a retirement home. She acquaints him with 2 or 3 older ladies called Esther and Rosemary. They all find a seat at a table where the ladies share their background and let the youngsters know how their lives are easier than many. Alex then, at that point, strolls Max to his home. Max inquires as to whether they can meet the following day, however Alex apologizes to him for giving him some wrong impression and will not meet him the following day. Max enlightens Dan concerning Alex while he's playing computer games with him. Afterward, Dan lets him know that he ought to backtrack his means and attempt to bump into her one more time. Max says the words, "You bump. I bump," spoken by Alex on a piece of material at home under a drawing of an bridge. The following morning, Max hangs tight for Alex at her bus station. Alex, tragically, shows up after her bus has left. The frightened Max tells her she just missed her bus. In reaction, she gazes at him and asks him if he's following her. Having no response to her question, Max decides to stay quiet. After a second, he requests that Alex put in a couple of additional hours with him since she'd previously missed her bus. Alex thinks for some time, then, at that point, says okay and starts strolling and invigorated. Max Hurley follows her. The two visit a close-by market and purchase various jelly beans. They top off a bathtub with jelly beans and sit inside it as they talk. Max uncovers reality with regards to his face to Alex, however incredibly, she knew. Alex likewise uncovers that she has an interesting heart condition because of which any sort of feeling, fortunate or unfortunate, influences her adversely. A short time later, Max and Alex visit the theater and play a drinking game together there. Alex lets Max know that he's her very first friend. The two of them appreciate each other's conversation and afterward go to Max's place. The two fool around in Max's room, and Alex removes his glasses to see his eyes while she's gazing into his eyes. Max's parents get back home and get stunned and eager to see Alex there. They tell him. From this point forward, Yashin, an international student, will be living with them. Yashin turns out to be rude. She promptly goes to her room and forcefully closes the door. The following morning, Alex and Max visit Rosemary and Esther. Rosemary is perched on an alternate table, enthusiastically waiting for somebody. Esther lets them know she's hanging tight for her child, who once used to bring her pies on her birthday, however, he doesn't visit any longer. It is uncovered that Rosemary's 82nd birthday and she awaits for her son like every year. Rosemary later goes along with them and they mess around at supper. Yashin is continually on her phone. Mrs. Richardson asks as to whether she needs to make her something uniquely great for her to eat, however she just gets quietness as a reaction. After a second, the doorbell rings and Yashin hurries to the entryway. She takes a pizza from the fellow outside and runs back inside without a word. Mrs. Richardson apologizes to the delivery boy and pays him. She then, at that point, tells Max she should take Yashin around the city to show her places. The following day Max fights and say he is going to set up camp with Dan and Alex, however Mrs. Richardson advises him to take Yashin along. Then, at that point, the next day, Dan, Max, Alex and Yashin go out. Yashin leaves a venture all alone. Alex snaps a twig and gets injured. Max removes a piece of the swathes folded over his face and bandages her injury. Alex expresses gratitude toward him and dismisses. She sees that her electronic heart screen has since downgrades, which for her is terrible information. Around evening time while setting up camp, Alex tells Max she wants to see his face. Max pulls the sheets over them and advises Alex to shut her eyes. As she does, he opens up his face and wraps the swathes around her eyes. He then, at that point, lets her touch his face with her hands, and in the intensity of heat Alex presses a kiss on Max's lips and immediately gets out and lays down to sleep as her heart could be heard pounding viciously against her chest. Afterward, Dan and Max pull a Christmas tree out of Max's home and lay it outside. Dan gets splinters in his grasp, and he's hurried to the clinic. The two additionally track down Alex there with her mom. Dan stops them and attempts to introduce Max and himself. In any case, Alex maintains a distance from them and lets her mom know that they simply cooperate and don't hang out. Afterward, Alex and Max meet by the street. Max asks why she said that to her mother, to which she explains her mother doesn't like the idea of her having friends, since feelings are bad for her. The two visit the retirement home. After this, Esther welcomes them, however Rosemary appears to not be near. They get some information about Rosemary, saying they brought her pies. Be that as it may, Esther uncovers Rosemary's health have deteriorated. She takes the teens to Rosemary, who is now bedridden in a critical situation. The circumstance disturbs both Max and Alex extraordinarily. Max and Alex share their concerns in how individuals treat them strangely as a result of the uncommon circumstances. Alex urges Max to show his face to Rosemary with the goal that she might die peacefully. But at the end, he agrees to do this with a heavy heart. Rosemary regains her consciousness when Max touches her hand. Max asks as to whether she would like to rest. Rosemary flickers her eyes, demonstrating a certifiable reaction. Along these lines, Max opens up his face. Rosemary looks at him and dies. Then, we're shown Max sitting with his mom at a table while his dad chips away at another game he's fixated on. Yashin goes into the house and goes upstairs without a word. Mrs. Richardson attempts to ask her how she is, yet as a reaction, WHE just inconsiderately kicks her back downstairs. Mrs. Richardson asks Max how things are with him and Alex. He tells her that Alex has stopped answering his instant messages. Along these lines he is confused. Mrs. Richardson then, at that point, grumbles about Mr. Richardson's new obsession, which she views as disappointing, to which the dad says nothing wrong in enjoying his free time. He already stressed, Max yells at his parents for always arguing and leaves. The following day, Dan and Max hang out at an eatery. Dan advises Max to welcome Alex to a dance party at a school, however Max appears to be hesitant. Dan texts Alex for Max's benefit and asks her out to the dance. Alex started to compose, however at that point gives no reaction. Max later goes to Alex's home to see her. He sees that her heart screen is sparkling red, a sign that her heart has gotten greater because of her feelings. The two end up arguing. Max tells Alex that it was wrong of her not to tell him what was going on with her. In any case, Alex states that there is no convenient solution to her concern and she can't live like a detainee. Alex then tells Max that she's been put on strong medications that will prevent her condition from worsening. And she says she wants to go to the dance with Max. Next, we're shown Max all dressed up for the dance. He goes down the stairs without his bandages, but his parents immediately cover Alex's eyes and send him back in. He apologizes and rushes back inside for the bandages. He returns a moment later after wearing them and approaches Alex. Alex gives Max a dog mask and a horn as a gift, saying they're further costumes. The two reach the party and start dancing together. Slow music starts playing soon and the couple start dancing. Max and Alex initially hesitate, but when Max asks Alex for her hand, they start slow dancing closely as well. The proximity makes Alex's heart throb. She excuses herself, saying she's getting sick and walks away as soon as her nose starts to bleed. After Alex leaves, Dan joins Max with his date called Valencia. Craig also comes towards them and tries to talk to Valencia, but she tells him off saying she's with Dan now. Craig realizes that Max is under the dog mask and grabs him by the neck, holding him with his face towards Valencia. Craig pulls off Max's mask to his horror. Valencia dies after having one look at his face. The police come and arrest Max. After some investigation, they let Max out of prison right after they release him from jail. Max visits Alex at the hospital to ask her about her health and her current situation. There, Max comes to know that Alex lied to him. She was never on medication. And every time he made her feel a certain way, her heart grew worse and worse. Alex tells Max that her life expectancy was just 16 years due to avoiding feelings and friends. She's been able to live up to 17 years, but she feels empty. Max, she says, was the only milestone in her life, the only person whose company she ever enjoyed. She says she can't get better and expresses her wish to see Max's face, but he straight up refuses, saying it's not easy to watch someone die and that her death will constantly haunt him in the future. He tells her he can't grant her wish and leaves at his house. Max's mother is worried at home and worried parents are shown talking to the police over the phone, asking where their son is, since they hadn't heard back since he'd been arrested. A stressed Max enters his house and starts violently hitting his face with a brick to disfigure his lethally attractive face. His parents stop him and calm him down. Max takes off his face, rapping in frustration and sorrow. The cat appears before him and dies on the spot. Next, Max is seen in a bathtub filled with jelly beans throughout the day. Max ignores Alex, texts, and calls. The next day, Dan goes to bid Valencia goodbye at her memorial. Max joins him there and they both talk about Valencia and Alex. Dan gets cross after learning that Max is ignoring Alex when she's in such a critical condition at the hospital and tells him not to be a dick. Max argues that his problems are bigger, to which Dan explains that his stubbornness will only deprive him of the chance to say goodbye. After a while, Max visits Alex and decorates her wall with self-made crafts. He then apologizes to Alex for not being there for her and lays down next to her. He tells her that it is really hard for him to say goodbye to her. They talk for a while and then Alex again asks to see Max's face. Max tells Alex to close her eyes. As she does, he unwraps his face and lays next to her. Alex turns towards him and takes off her oxygen mask. She tells Max she's scared, to which he says she doesn't have to do this, with her eyes still closed. Alex kisses Max and opens her eyes. However, seeing him does not kill her and she keeps staring. Suddenly, her monitors start beeping loudly. Max hurriedly wraps his face again and calls for the doctors. Next, Max is seen lying beside Alex's bed as he goes down the memory lane and recalls all the good memories with Alex. We're then brought back to the present where Alex's bed is now empty and the wall no longer holds the crafts made for her. Max leaves from the clinic in agony and strolls to the congregation where he remains adjacent to Alex's coffin. Max then, at that point, goes to the brig. He puts a jelly bean flyer in an envelope with Alex's name on it and drops it into the waterway, allowing it to sink. Then, we're shown Max at a doctor's clinic. The doctor asks him how he feels on a scale from 1 to 10, to which he answers, he feels like a 5. The doctor lets Max know that this is magnificent improvement, indicating he'd been much worse before in his healing. The doctor asks him what changed, to which he made sense of that the case over Valencia at long last got settled. Serotonin overdose was declared the reason for death, which appeared to be natural. So every one of the bodies of evidence against both Max and Craig were dropped. The case made Max well known, and some of the time individuals ask him for his assistance to finally give the ones in pain some peace. Max actually visits Esther, he says. He makes sense of that Alex showed him when somebody loves you genuinely, your face isn't the most appealing to them. Your character is. Along these lines, the individuals who love him can't be killed by him. His parents have additionally grown closer and figured out things between them. The doctor asks him what's close, to which he says he presently needs to live without the wrappings. Thanks guys for watching till end. See you in next video. By the time check out other videos on my channel and don't forget to like and subscribe.